These are 13 Facebook ad mistakes that could be killing your campaign from somebody who spent $5 million of their own money in the last 2 years on the platform. Number one is focusing too much on the ads instead of the offer. Think of Facebook like an exaggeration machine. Whatever you currently have, Facebook is only going to exaggerate it. So if you have an offer that people are loving to hear, whenever you tell your friends, your family, people in the market, when you post on social media, people are already buying it, they're interested in learning more, and they want to hop on a call with you, then Facebook's going to lead to more of that. It's going to exaggerate that result. You're going to get more people looking to work with you. You're going to get more people interested, and you're going to get more clients from it. However, if instead, whenever you're talking about your offer or you're, running emails or you're doing blasts on social media and nobody's really interested, you're kind of getting crickets, then all you're going to do is exaggerate that, which means that you'll be getting more crickets. So out of 50 people that learn of your offer every day, if nobody's messaging you, well, Facebook's going to let you reach 500 people a day, and you're just going to have more people not messaging you, except for now you're having to spend money on it. So what I recommend doing first and foremost is always to dial in the offer and make it cold friendly. The second mistake that we see is not having the right sales process in place. So this is very similar to the first one in that it doesn't actually have to do with Facebook ads, but that's because a lot of people are thinking Facebook ads is the cure-all to their entire business, when in reality, it's just one small piece of the puzzle. So if you don't have an ironed out sales process, then when you start getting leads and booked calls on your calendar from Facebook ads, then you're going to be wasting a lot of money. So it's not uncommon for someone to come work with us and they have a cost per booked call around $1,000 to $2,000. And when we make some adjustments and build out the funnel for them, we're able to bring it down to $100 to $200. So previously they would say that Facebook ads were too expensive and it didn't work. And that was only because their entire sales process was not dialed in correctly. So when you have a lot of waste, when there isn't a lot of efficiency, then when you get 10 eyeballs that hit your page, you might get one of them to convert into a booked call, where if you increase the efficiency, when you get 10 eyeballs to hit the page, you might have 5 of them book a call. And that's what we're looking for. And that's why it has nothing to do with the actual Facebook ads themselves. The third mistake is going too narrow on the targeting. When it comes to Facebook ads, a few years ago, it used to be really good when you could get really, really narrow with the targeting. And you'd say, people that were agency owners, that were also Facebook business page admins, that are also in the top 10% of income earners in the United States. And you were rewarded for that by having really low CPMs and really low cost per acquisitions. What I have seen a shift recently in Facebook is more rewarding for people who are able to go broader, because the Facebook algorithm every single second, every single day is getting smarter. And the more money you spend on that platform, the more it's better understanding who your target client is, who's the one that's actually clicking on the ad, who's the one that's becoming a lead, and who's the one that's becoming a booked call. So one of my recommendations is always to try to go as broad as possible and let the creative, let the ad copy, let the sales funnel do a lot of the qualification for you. And this will typically lower your cost per booked call, cost per lead, cost per acquisition, sometimes up to 30 to 50% by simply allowing the algorithm to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. The fourth mistake is not trying enough creatives. When I see somebody who has their Facebook ad campaign not working, a lot of times they're thinking that it has to do with the funnel, it has to do with the video sales letter, it has to do with the lead form. And so they're making all of these iterations, a lot of them really difficult to do, instead of iterating the actual ad creative itself. The ad creative is the first point of contact. It's the first reference point that this person has of almost your entire company. Remember, right before this person had no idea who you were and what you offered, and then they saw the ad, and if it spoke to some part of their pain or desire, they clicked on it with a certain set of expectations. And so if that set of expectations is incorrect, then that's going to trickle down for the entire funnel, which is why a lot of the times, just by getting new ad creatives, new ad copies, just 1 minute to 2 minute videos, you can see huge impacts on the rest of your funnel without having to create a whole new 10 to 50 minute video sales letters in order to test something new. The fifth mistake that I see is not having the correct campaign structure. So like I talked about a moment ago, if we know that the ad creative is very important, then then we want to give each ad creative the proper amount of time and money to test if it has some legs to it, to test if it's actually viable. The mistake that I see people do is they might make one campaign, then they do one ad targeting with a bunch of different types of targeting inside of it. So they have lookalike audiences, they have custom audiences, they have, associations, they have professions, all inside this one audience. So it's almost impossible to identify which one of those is actually bringing you the best leads. And then the same thing with the ad creative. They might put 3 or 4 different ad creatives inside of the exact same ad set. So you don't know which creative and which targeting is the one that's bringing you the best leads, the best calls, and the best deals. In the other video where I go more in depth on it, I talk about the silo approach, which is having one campaign, one ad set, which only has one type of targeting inside of it, and then one ad creative per that ad set. The 6th mistake that I see is not using the proper naming conventions. Now, I know, there's nothing worse than working with really complex and really difficult to understand data. And that's what your Facebook Ads Manager really is. It's simply just a set of data points. It's showing you what your cost per lead, what your cost per call, what your click-through rate. And if you can't tell which campaign from which ad set from which ad very easily, it's going to be very cumbersome in order to manage those ad campaigns. It's not uncommon for us to work with a client who says that they don't have it, that Facebook ads doesn't work for them, and they're spending, $10,000 to $50,000 a month. And then when I go inside their ads manager, I actually find 1 or 2 ad sets that are incredibly profitable, but because they can't even tell one ad set from the next, then they have no idea what's profitable and what's not. It's all in the naming convention. Like I said, after this video is done, I'd recommend checking out that other video where I go deeper in those naming conventions so you understand exactly how that works. Facebook ads mistake number 7 is not having a large enough test budget. You have to remember, when we're first getting on Facebook ads, it's not that we're expecting the first ad that we throw up, or even the first 2 ads that we throw up, are going to be a 10 times return on ad spend and it's going to take your company to $10 million a year. We're just trying to figure out, are we on the right track? And I think people very much underestimate the amount of money that's required to do that. Now, if you're working with an expert that has done this thousands of times, they're going to be able to tell you it's going to be a lot easier if we start this way with these audiences and these ads because we've done this thousands of times. But still, even then, they're not going to know exactly what you should be doing. The only way we know is by spending money and having the marketplace tell us what we should be doing. So we like to budget anywhere from $100 to $1,000 in our testing phase of the Facebook advertising campaign. And a lot of times we're going to find the winner and we're going to start closing deals within the first few days and we're going to be profitable. But sometimes we might not close a deal. But all we're looking in that first $1,000 is to see, are we on the right track to close a deal? So if we have 5 different ad sets and 5 different creatives, each at $100 a day, you're going to be really easily spending $500 a day, which means in 2 days you could have used your entire ad budget. However, if in those 2 days we can see which ads brought in these qualified leads and which ads brought in these qualified booked calls, we can cut down the ad sets that aren't bringing us the qualified ones, and we may not have a closed deal yet, but we know that these really qualified calls, they're going to bring us the closed deal eventually. Which brings us back to one of the original points that I had, which was having your sales process dialed in. When I run a new ad campaign, we'll start it at $200 to $300 a day, and our average sales cycle is around 14 to 20 days. So I'm going to be spending thousands of dollars before we have our first closed deal and I'm profitable. However, I know that whenever we close a deal, it's going to be for this cash amount collected, and I know that our sales process is really, really dialed. So as long as we're getting qualified calls, which means that their application looks good, they're showing up to calls, we're having good conversations, I'm kind of looking at that qualitative data, then I know that eventually we're going to hit and close a deal. Facebook ad mistake number 8 is the exact opposite of mistake number 7, which is that sometimes people spend too much time and too much money using test creatives and test ad sets. The mistake that I see people make is they run the campaigns the way that I just told you a moment ago, then they find a winner. They know that this ad set and this ad creative is working. We're getting qualified calls. We're maybe at a 2, a 4, maybe even a 6 times return on ad spend, but they're still taking 50 to 70% of their budget and they're using it on testing new creatives and new ad sets. Because people are always like, oh, I want to diversify. I want to have enough ad creatives, enough ad sets that are working well. We have ad sets that we are literally spending $6,000 to $8,000 a day on that are just one ad set with one targeting and one creative inside of it, $6,000 to $8,000 a day. And we've been doing that for 4 to 6 months now. So when you find a winner, you should just allocate 80% of your budget to that winner, because unless you're in an incredibly niche market, which once again, a lot of people way underestimate how large their market is. Unless you're in an incredibly niche market, you can still scale that ad campaign really, really high without it affecting the KPIs. And even if it does affect the KPIs, let's say, for example, that your ad campaign used to be getting cost per acquisitions at $200 and now you're getting cost per acquisitions at $400. Well, if you're selling something for $3,000, who cares? You're still at a massive profit margin here. So when it's time to scale, it's time to scale. Don't be afraid and put the pedal to the metal. Facebook ad mistake number 9 is not using automated rules to scale. So very similar to the last mistake, most people don't scale correctly. And a lot of times it's because they're using emotions to drive their decisions. So they're thinking, oh, I don't have a closed deal in yet, or I'm afraid to spend more money on ads. So even though they have the winning campaign, even though they want their business to grow, they're still looking at the ads manager every day and they're afraid to click the budget and increase that budget amount. And that's why what I like to do and what I like to do for our clients is remove the emotion from it totally. What we do is we set up automated rules on Facebook and we say, hey, 3 times a week, I want you to analyze these campaigns. If the KPIs, the key performance indicators, if the cost per lead, the cost per booked call is below this threshold, increase the budget by 20%. And that's going to slowly compound over time. And it's not going to get out of control because you can put backstops and you say, hey, never increase the ad budget above $2,000 a day. And you could say, and you're checking the ads on a daily basis, so you should never really see it go insane from one day it's $100 and the next day it's $10,000, but it's just going to allow it so that you don't have to worry about it. You know, if you're always having to make decisions on a daily basis as CEO, it's going to be really difficult. It's going to sap a lot of energy and you're going to miss a lot of things. But if you can use automations whenever required or whenever available, then you're going to be able to scale a lot faster. And so what we like to do is set up that automation, the one that I told you a moment ago, so that it increases by 20% every few days as long as they're still within KPI. Mistake number 10 is not making decisions on a long enough time period. What I mean by this is that a lot of times people make decisions on a 1 day, a 2 day, maybe even a 7-day window inside their Facebook ads manager. But like I talked about before, if we know it takes 20 days, 30 days, 40 days to get a sale to come in, then you want to have a little bit of a longer term vision as far as what campaigns are working and what campaigns are not. It's not uncommon for me to run an ad set or an ad and see it fluctuate on a day-to-day basis. Maybe, 3 days ago, we were getting cost per leads at $5, and then today and yesterday, we're getting cost per leads at $10, and it's double the amount, and I could be freaking out, and I could turn the ad set off. But in reality, if you waited 3 more days and you look at it over maybe a 10-day, a 14-day, a 30-day window, then you'll have a better bird's eye view. And really, you'll figure out that your real cost per lead is not $5, which was your best day ever, but instead it's really more close to $7 or $8, and you can work that out in the rest of your equation there. I look at ads on a day-to-day basis, but the time window that I'm looking at is every 14 days in order to spot trends, and I only turn on or off campaigns based on a 30-day window. Facebook ad mistake number 11 is not following Facebook compliance. Now, I know that it's not uncommon for Meta to just shut down your Facebook ads manager without any reason why, and then reinstate it a few days later when you appeal and just say, oh, sorry, that was our mistake. But a lot of times, if you looked at how you're running your ads, the creative, your landing pages, there's a really good chance that you're not in compliance. And so it's really your fault that your ad account is getting shut down. Like I've said before, we've spent millions of dollars on ads, and I have had dozens of accounts created and shut down. I've spoken to dozens of different Facebook ads reps, advertising agencies, and I've worked with over 1,000 clients in the online space. So I know what gets shut down and what doesn't, and I know that there's also some series and factor of randomness and luck as to whether you're getting shut down or not, but it's not as big as we think. And I have a whole separate video on YouTube, we'll link down below, that goes incredibly in depth as far as Facebook compliance. And it actually gives you a checklist of all the things that we look at whenever we're running our ad campaigns for ourselves and for our clients. And I'd recommend going and watching that video at the end of this so you can see, because there's a lot of stuff that people don't know, like disclaimers at the bottom of your landing pages, not using before and after photos in your videos, not using before and after shots in your creative, and not using timelines in your ad copy that make it seem unrealistic. Facebook ad mistake number 12 is relying relying solely on Facebook's attribution system. In layman terms, this means that you're believing everything that you read on the Facebook Ads Manager dashboard. So when it says that this ad brought you 10 leads or 5 booked calls, you believe that it brought you 10 leads or 5 booked calls. But for those of you who've been running ads for a while, you'll know that there is a huge discrepancy between what Facebook ads reports and what is actually coming in. It used to be a smaller gap between those two things, but then whenever iOS 14 came out, it really rocked the world by preventing Facebook from reading what happens beyond the click. Now, there are some incredible softwares out there that actually allow you to attribute correctly which ad sets and which ads are bringing in the right leads, the right booked calls, and the right closed deals. But one of the simplest ways that we like to do it is to simply ask people. So whenever they're booking a call with you, whenever they're filling out an application to speak with you, the last question should always be, how did you hear of us? And have one of the drop downs be a Facebook ad. And so you might not know exactly which Facebook ad it is, but it might help you identify we are actually getting booked calls from Facebook ads. Now, anybody that is spending over $200 to $300 a day on the platform needs to be getting a software outside of Facebook that can let you know the proper attribution, because the difference at scale could literally be hundreds of thousands of dollars in both cost, real cost, as well as opportunity cost, and not scaling the right campaign. And the 13th Facebook ad mistake is not testing enough conversion optimizations. So what this means is when you're running a conversion campaign on Facebook, you can tell Facebook, I want you to find me as many people that are likely to become leads or booked calls or purchases or submitted applications as possible. So this is something that you select when you're setting up the ad set inside of the Ads Manager. The mistake that I see a lot of people make is they're not testing what happens if I optimize for a lead versus a submit application. What happens if I optimize for a booked call versus a purchase? And you can see huge discrepancies in your returns just by testing these out. If you're just starting an ad set out, you may want to just start on the furthest top of funnel optimization, which would be a lead. And if you've had an ad set or an ad campaign that's a little bit more seasoned, a pixel that has more data on it, you might want to try something further down the line, like a booked call or a purchase, but never assume that that's a full rule. Meaning, don't assume that, okay, I've had 300 booked calls, so let me optimize for booked calls, because you would be shocked. I always split test running a booked call optimization versus a lead optimization, and it is not uncommon for the lead optimization to get a return that is 2 to 5 times higher than what the booked call optimization one is for. So just like everything else, if you're a really good marketer, always be testing, okay? Always see what happens if I optimize for leads, what happens if I optimize for booked calls, and you may see your cost per acquisition drop significantly.